Chair. Now, on the question of the implication of the case, what I was trying to reveal is that in a case where we are all affected by the outbreak of a disease, but it only matters much those who have capacity can approach the court to petition a particular matter that affects their business. So I was just raising the outcome of that case, whether will it now apply, whatever the outcomes, will those outcomes only be for those who lodged the case, or the consequences of the outcome of a judgment will have an overarching effect wherein even those who didn't lodge, that now they can benefit from whatever the outcome of the case. I was citing that because the industry is separated into formal, informal, emerging, communal. But you find other sectors not being able to petition the department to the point that they comply based on the outcomes of the judiciary. So those who can't approach the court because you need money to sustain a matter in court, then it means sometimes you end up losing. So I was just raising that, will we benefit others who may not be cited in the judgment, that when the department complies with whatever outcome, that we are all gonna, because the implication is that if the private sector are given a right to vaccinate, it means the communal emerging farmers also should be given, because if they are not, then it means this was just done for them because they are able to take the matter to court. So I was asking, are the outcomes going to be shared or are only for specific reasons? But there's no need for an answer. It's just an observation. Thank you, Chair, and greetings to fellow portfolio committee members. As I'm listening to the presentation, I'm taken back, and I would like to ask the question. Please take us into your confidence, in your knowledge. What was the rush of this bill or this act to be approved before the enactment of the South African Constitution in '96? I'm asking that because at that time the country was in a transition. But between a transition wherein a fundamental piece of or one of the pillar of our constitutional democracy was promulgated on the 8th of May. You already have an act that would regulate such that that act falls short of any constitutional amendment or inputs that were already established. Surely, if we can understand what was their rush, what were they rushing to, what was it that was so big that it was bigger than the Constitution at the time? Then looking back now, it's exactly over 32 years. And this industry or this act has been functioning in that untransformed manner. And now it's still delaying again. What could be really going on in this industry, especially that the industry is still running parallel processes where you have emerging on the parallel with the commercial industry. So which means even whatever input you are getting, you are probably getting from one end, because the emerging ones are still fighting for their entry into the industry. Once they are fighting, the established industry is already talking issues of marketing, how their products will be marketed. And I'm noticing here the deregulation of the agricultural regulatory bodies, which means there was a laissez-faire kind of operation in the regulatory bodies, which were dealing with commodities, your potato, your grain, your citrus, and all of that. So they were doing whichever, they were operating without there is a regulatory body being in place. And so a lot is really questionable. But moving on, this industry trust fund, in my mind, I'm thinking, who are the beneficiaries of the industry trust fund? Could it be that the industry has set up a trust fund to benefit certain beneficiaries? And who are these beneficiaries? Could it be the previously disadvantaged communities wherein forced removal took place, such that to make way for the agricultural farms that are operating? Those are issues that I would like to ask and raise. Other than that, yeah, I think I've covered the question. Thank you.